Well, good morning. It's good to be with you on this Friday morning as we conclude our week together in James. We'll conclude our week together in James by finishing chapter one. So I hope you have a great weekend planned. I don't think I have anything planned this weekend. I'm going to preach in our contemporary service at St. Matthew's, our intersection service. So that'll be fun to preach there. I hadn't been over there a little bit, so it's going to be good to be with our people there. I'm looking forward to preaching there. And I think it's all I have on the calendar. So I'm kind of excited about maybe not a whole lot this weekend. So wherever you find yourself this weekend, I hope it is restful and meaningful and good. So today we're going to finish out James chapter 1. We'll start with it's and this is some good stuff. This is one of those passages that really kind of serves as the heart of the book of James. Let's read chapter 1, verse 19 through 27. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourself of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. Be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they're like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves, and on going away, immediately forget what they were like. But those who look at the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious, and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. So in this, we see the heart of James's message. We said how James is about how our works flow naturally from our faith. So James tells us today what pure and undefiled religion looks like. What is religion distilled down to the heart look like? What is actual, sure enough, true Christianity? What is the faith? Remember, we said earlier this week that faith is not merely intellectual agreement, but that faith is a heart transformed by the gospel. So what does that transformed heart look like? What does a heart that's been transformed by the goodness of God look like? We see it in verse 26 and 27. If you say you're religious, cool, but you don't bridle your tongue, you deceive your heart, your religion's worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled is to care for orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained by the world. First, he starts off this section with anger. He says, be slow to anger, for your anger does not produce God's righteousness. You've heard me say it. If you've heard me preach a lot, you've heard me beat this dead horse. And friends, for the foreseeable future, I think I'm going to keep beating this dead horse. We swim in the ocean of anger right now. Everyone's angry. We swim in the ocean of anger. And people say, well, look at Jesus. Jesus turned over tables, shouldn't we? And so he must have been angry when he did that. Yeah, Jesus did flip over a table. And Jesus did do that. And there should be times when the wickedness of the world, when things that are happening, should make us angry. I'm not saying that we should not have passion and anger awakened within us at times when things are bad. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, what does it say? Be slow to speak, slow to anger. I do think there's a time to be angry, but that shouldn't be our first impulse about everything. If your first impulse about everything is anger, be careful. Be careful. That's not healthy. That's not good. Anger should not be our first impulse at all things. And right now in our culture, right now on social media, right now in our world, man, the anger dial is just turned up to 12, 13, 15, 20. Everyone's angry. And that anger is overflowing and it can infect our soul and make us not bridle our tongues, make us react on social media, make us say things we regret, make us act in ways we don't even like. And if your first impulse in all things is anger, that's not a healthy thing. That's not a good thing. We need to be very careful when anger becomes our first impulse in life. So we're told here, be slow to anger. But then we see, it says, be doers of the word, not just hearers. Don't just talk about religion. Don't just give mouth to religion or give voice to religion, but let your life actually live out your religion. Be doers, not just hearers. Don't just hear the word, but apply the word and live out the word in your life. But then I love the end of it, where he talks about what is distilled religion. To bridle your tongue. Once again, let's go back to that concept of anger. Be careful what you say. Be careful how you speak. Be careful the words that come out of your words. We're going to see, we're going to get to chapter 3, a whole section on taming the tongue. So we're gonna keep up with this. Don't worry. You're gonna hear me complain about social media some more in a couple chapters. Don't worry. Guard your tongue, because from the tongue, from the overflow of the heart goes the mouth. So be careful. The religion that's pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows and to keep yourself unstained from the world. We have to, in our faith, care for those in need. Our faith does not allow us to look idly by at those that are in need. And so in that culture, widows and the orphans were the poorest of the poor, because orphans had no parents. And of course, in that culture, your parents kind of determine your station in life. So if you had parents that were well-to-do or had a job, or just not even well-to-do, just had a job, you had a path for sustenance from the livelihood of your parents. So if you were an orphan, then you had no one. You had no one making a way for you. You had no one leading you. You had no one that could chart your path. If you were an orphan, you were rudderless in many ways. So orphans had no one. And widows, a widow had no husband. So a widow would have no one to provide for her, to take care for her, to protect her. So your widows and your orphans had no protection, no provision, no care, no one looking out for them, no one being there for them. They were the most on the margins. They were the most easily to forget. They were the ones that people could look past. It's very easy to ignore the widows and orphans. It's very easy not to care for them. Very easy to ignore them. Particularly, so many of these widows and orphans were Christians, because people were martyred, people were thrown in prison, people were cast aside. And so he's telling us, don't just talk about how much you love God. Don't just talk about how much you love your neighbor, but do it. Do these things that we talk about. Do these things that we say matter to us. Do these things that are important. What is pure religion? To guard your tongue, to watch what you say, and to take care of widows and orphans, and to keep yourself unstained from the world. So in other words, live separate from the world. You've heard me say it before. If you tell folks you're a Christian and they go, "Really?" It's not a good sign. We shouldn't have to tell folks we're a Christian. Our life should live out the gospel so loudly that folk know we're a Christian. In fact, it goes back to that verse I love in 1 Peter, where he says, always be ready to give a defense for the hope that you have. In other words, we should live our lives so radically for the gospel that people want to know what's wrong with us. When they ask what's wrong with us, we can then say, well, the reason why I live like I live and love like I love and serve like I serve is because of Jesus. And our lifestyle can be a means by which we point other people to Jesus. So we see here that our lives are supposed to be submitted to the Lordship of Jesus Christ, and we see what it looks like. Being so careful to not let anger be our first emotion, not let anger be our first impulse. And the pure and undefiled religion before God the Father, to care for those on the margins, to care for those others forget about, to care for those that are cast aside, to care for the weak in our community, to care for them, to give, to serve, to love, to see them. I had a conversation with somebody recently that encountered a homeless person in Jackson, and they said they were powerless to do anything to help them. I said, but you know what you did? You saw them, you acknowledged them, you hugged them, you acknowledged their humanity. And that might have been the first time that person had their humanity acknowledged in months. They saw them as someone that was worthy of love. And so that is what religion that's undefiled before God looks like. Not getting in anger, taking care of the marginalized, the widows, the orphans, and to live a life separate from the world. So, like I said, James, he doesn't pull punches, he doesn't mince words. He shows us what the Christian life should look like. So, it's a heavy command for us and a high calling, but through God's grace, we can do it. So, Hey, thanks for being with us today. Hope you have a great weekend. And we'll pick up with chapter 2 Monday. See you then. Thanks.